Slavery stands as a dark chapter in human history, leaving an indelible mark on societies across the globe. The practice has taken many forms, but its essence remains rooted in exploitation and dehumanization. When two young women are acquired at the human market, they approach their new owner, Alan, with quiet determination. One of them asks why he buys them. The other says she wants Alan to tell them what he really wants from them. Alan repeats the question in his mind, wondering what he wants from the slaves he bought. He thinks that the answer should be obvious. Of course. But then another thought surfaces. He says he wants to free the world from hunger, he guesses. He calls himself an idiot. His vision isn't yet fully formed, and doubt still lingers. But his heart longs for change. This story is not just about bondage or freedom. It is a deeper journey, about unshackling ourselves from old systems, confronting what it means to be human, and imagining a better future. The manga begins with a boy sees a pure white space. What he sees before him is the smile of a beauty far superior to that of a human. He calls it a chance encounter with a goddess. In other words, he confirms that he died. Yes, he is dead. The boy says this is what he learned about in those lectures, the staple of all web novels, Isekai'd into another world. He imagines he will surely be granted an unimaginable power and will start living out the life of a hero in another world, and then he will be doing this and that with pretty girls. The boy says after 30 years of his lonely life with his trusted partner, he will say goodbye to his virginity. The goddess then speaks that it seems Alan has awoken. She then calls him shitty, unpopular, and unable to hold a proper conversation with women, and refers to him as Mr. Virgin. He reacts and asks what that was. Anyway, she speaks the truth, so he can't retort. Thanks to his sharp-tongued younger sister, this guy gets used to such biting remarks. His sister always mocks him relentlessly. If anything, he says he's confident in his resistance toward verbal abuse. This situation is nothing in comparison. In fact, hearing these words makes him feel better. Curious, he asks who the beauty in front of him is. She apologizes for the late introduction and says she is a being whom mortals call a goddess. At that point, he realizes that he is dead. The reason goes back to a certain moment. She says he collides with a high school girl who falls from a building and suffers a fatal injury to his spinal cord. Yeah, he remembers trying to save her when she falls on him while he is returning home from overtime. The goddess says he falls prey to her juicy ass. What the hell? She asks if it is to his satisfaction. He questions why she's smiling. He doesn't deny the desire to be sat upon by a woman's ass, but says that, like this, he doesn't even feel that softness. He insists that he is the one who gets to decide if it is to his satisfaction or not. He asks about the girl who fell. The goddess says she is saved thanks to his efforts. This reassures him. He says it's good that his death is not in vain. The goddess says she saves his mortal life. To reward that good deed, she says she will give him a special favor and a second chance at life. A second chance and a special favor. This is the usual pattern. He says he has been waiting for this. The goddess says he will be reincarnated in a fantasy world of swords and magic. To be precise, she says he will possess a person. He asks how possession differs from reincarnation. She explains that in the goddess's realm, there's a flood of reincarnators and a lack of vessels, the bodies for those souls. To ensure smooth execution of the work, they select and procure in advance the receptacles. That is, the bodies of natives. Every business has it rough. The one he will be possessing is him. A boy called Alan. Looking at Alan's face, he wonders if the boy is around 17 or 18. Oh my, what a cute face he has. It's an outstanding body. The goddess says it has quite good compatibility with an older Oni-san. Sex is all but guaranteed. She says that with this, she can grant a fervent wish for a change his skinny virgin ass holds dear. What the hell? This shitty goddess keeps playing with people as easily as she breathes. She asks if he wants to die. He protests, saying he doesn't even say anything. He asks her to please not peek at others' thoughts. He then asks about possession, saying it's like uniting with the former Alan's personality, so they will be together like two minds sharing the body. Despite imagining such a scenario, the goddess reveals that, unfortunately, the original personality of Alan will cease to exist. Alan, being a novice adventurer raised in an orphanage, is about to lose his life in a starting dungeon. This leads him to dramatically call out to his future partner. The goddess explains that when Alan's soul leaves his body, she will have his own soul inhabit the now empty vessel. He pauses and says he's kind of conflicted about this. He realizes that Alan is going to die in the dungeon and ends up as monster food. He says he doesn't want to possess the body of a zombie. He laughs and adds that he's had enough of being called smelly in his previous life already. The goddess smiles and says that's why she is giving him a transmigrator's privilege. She announces what she will grant him, the regeneration skill. He repeats the word in confusion and confirms that it's the thing that helps recover from injuries and body decline. The goddess clarifies that it is set to activate the moment his soul possesses Alan's body. She then asks if he understands now. He nods and says he sees it. He realizes that at the time of the original Alan's death, his own soul and personality will be injected, the wounds that led to death will be healed with regeneration, and he will regain consciousness. He calls it crazy and thinks this cheat of canceling death is so against the rules, SSS tier, basically for free. In short, he believes if he uses regeneration on a beautiful girl or woman, they will be filled with gratitude and his full of sex life is guaranteed. The result appears in his mind. Goodbye, virginity. The goddess concludes the explanation and asks if he has any questions. He responds with full confidence that he is all ready. He declares there is no reason to shrink away when a glorious future lies ahead. No, there is none. As his second life begins, his adventure in another world, living a fulfilling life, starts at this moment. For sure, a peachy life awaits him. As he spreads his arms in light, he says watch him as he becomes a harem king. Well, there is a time when he thinks like this. He is Alan, formerly a skinny virgin ass. 3 years have passed since he starts living in this other world of swords and magic. In the meantime, he is getting closer to setting a new record for keeping his virginity. Not only does Alan fail to hold a girl's hand, he can't even manage to have a proper conversation with one. He questions if this is a joke or a bad dream. There are also a couple of miscalculations. Number 1, exterminating monsters is hard. Alan says he can't win normally, even against the weakest monster, a slime boyo. Number 2, you can't learn magic by leveling up. The goddess announces this in a dream, but she forgets to mention it before. The prospects of making it big are simply hopeless. What's more, the only card Alan can play is the regeneration skill. It is quite strong with its momentous activation and low mana consumption. Number 3, it's impossible to cut pain receptors, but the pain doesn't go away. The endless loop of pain is hella scary. Number 4, failure to form a party. There is nobody who would want such an incompetent, weak companion. Alan ends up a total loner. His only salvation is not using regeneration in front of others. It's not that he can't use it. As he secretly heals a guy nearby, his wound starts to disappear. He remarks that this is the power granted by a god. The heal skill, which can help cure yourself, is considered a miracle art. That's what the church says, at least. Number 5, the church holds all authority. Apparently, it's a dangerous organization that has accumulated money, authority, and lust and can easily take political power from the empire. Regeneration is a superior version of the heal skill. The last thing he wants is to have eyes on his cheat. But giving up just because of this isn't Alan's style. He says if it were anyone else who doesn't have his quick insight, they would have missed this all. He finally arrives at the slave trader. Alan's 85 IQ brain has a flash of insight. If he can't find companions for his adventure, why not live a slow-paced life instead? He saves enough funds by part-timing at a clinic for 3 years. With a slave, he can give them any loot order. What's more, he can forbid a slave from revealing his regeneration skill by using a slave crest, which makes them obey him unconditionally. It's a foolproof plan. This is where his otherworldly harem life starts. Alan enters the dim interior where the slave trader awaits, grinning as he asks what rank of slave the customer desires. Alan finds the atmosphere intimidating but tells himself not to get swept away. He needs to be resolute. With forced boldness, he raises his voice and demands to see everything, wondering if his approach fails. After showing everything, the trader says that was the last place and asks if something has caught his eye. Alan thinks the only thing that stands out is the price. Still, it's not like he comes unprepared. He decides to show his intelligence and go on the offensive. Alan presses, asking if there are others. The trader reacts in surprise. Alan reminds him that he did ask to see everything. Internally, he admits it was a bluff, but wonders if it actually works. His strategy is to take slaves that couldn't be sold. The trader gives in and leads him through a dark corridor, and Alan follows, questioning whether people are really being kept here. The place is quite unpleasant. Behind bars, two injured girls sit chained and battered. Alan stares in silence, stunned. He asks who they are. The trader explains that one with pointed ears is an ancient elf, a superior breed of elves, while the other is an elder dwarf. Both are rare species. Under normal circumstances, they would be treated as special A-rank slaves, but in their current condition. Alan interrupts and asks how much, and he will take them both. The trader names a sum large enough to erase all of Alan's savings in an instant. Still, Alan insists and wants to return their dignity as soon as possible. Once they're outside, Alan pulls the cart and reassures himself that nobody will see them here. The girls huddle in the back, still scared. He kneels down and gently tells them there's nothing to fear. He says they have endured so much and activates regeneration. He can finally show the true worth of regeneration. Their cut of hands and eyes that lost their light are restored to how they were before. Alan freezes. The elf girl stares at her restored self in disbelief, while the dwarf girl examines her hand and quietly asks how. Alan stuns how beautiful they are. He thinks he wanted cute slaves, but he didn't expect them to be this pretty. His brain can't keep up. How is he supposed to talk to them? Until the elf girl suddenly asks him what his name is. Alan stammers and says his name is Alan, but he bites his tongue while saying it. The girls look at each other and whisper that he fumbled. Alan tries to calm himself down. This is his unexpected boon, and it is finally here, his harem in another world. Alan recalls that time he uses his cheat skill to restore the slaves he buys, who turn out to be beautiful babes. He thinks that finally he will be able to realize that pledge he gave to himself when he reincarnated, to create the harem for himself. He follows up by noting that that's what one would usually think, right? By buying those two, he blows all his savings to the last coin. He has no money to pay for an inn and is forced to live almost in the open in a monastery deep in the mountains. He says from now on, he has a duty to provide sustenance for both of them. Alan states bluntly that he is broke. The goddess interrupts and asks if his lack of forethought is not appalling to see. She presses him to agree. Alan responds that just because she is a goddess, she can't barge into people's inner monologues and tells her to stop. The goddess dismisses him, saying it doesn't cost him anything and questions why he is so serious. She waves him off, telling him to just get out of there. Alan continues reading and groans that anyway, there's a lot of things he doesn't foresee coming upon him. He clutches the scroll and exclaims he just wants to hear certain words from the two whom he restores to their full health. He imagines this as his harem. He notes that as one can guess from what he is talking about, he still continues to update his record on holding on to his virginity. The slaves he buys are an ancient elf named Sylphie and an elder dwarf Noel. Apparently, they both are of rare races in this world. But aside from that, everything about them is a mystery. He thinks he can't read or write the script used in this world like a baby. He looks over the scroll and says he is sure there's a lot of stuff written in this appraisal scroll. The goddess appears again, commenting that he can learn it himself. Alan regains focus and tells himself that thanks to his modern knowledge, he'll be unparalleled in farming. He reassures himself it's not bad. Ain't. And concludes that he needs to get food post-haste. He starts digging until a voice calls out asking what he is doing. He turns and stutters Sylphie's name as she stands before him. He panics, saying he got distracted by her. He quickly explains that he wanted to grow yams. Sylphie looks at him and asks if he will be growing them. Alan responds, yeah. He forces a smile and tries to think that there's no way she will want to eat the yam tended to by the skinny virgin ass. He mutters, it's gotta be the reason, yeah. Alan then wonders if she thinks of him as a sorry excuse for a master and wants to be self-sufficient. He is sure it's true. He asks if she is on a walk and tells her to take care. Sylphie replies with an uncertain "ee." He affirms he won't let them continue sleeping under the sky or stay very hungry. Until yams can be picked, they will eat this one first. He smiles and presents a basket of food that he bought in town. He still thinks about his wallet, but if they both gain some meat on them, they will be quite good to cuddle with. Alan offers food to Noel, saying this is tasty. Noel holds the bowl and softly says, thank you. He insists there are seconds and tells them to eat more and more. He notes that they are both still quite wary of him. Well, in this situation, he can't very well go and ask them to have sex with him. He questions how he is going to get them to be open with him. He decides that for now, he needs to find work. It's depressing, but today he could only come up with some bait to nibble on. He informs them that he is heading to town and asks them to wait for him. He turns to them and asks if they want to eat something specific, saying he'll buy it on the way back. Sylphie says nothing in particular. Noel adds me too. As he walks away, he says that he doesn't even know what they like to eat. He reflects that even his plan to lure them with the bait went up in smoke. From Sylphie's point of view, she watches him leave and notes that he really went out and left the slaves. She acknowledges that both she and Noel have already gotten their original powers back. Even though they have slave crests, it's not that hard to break away from their control. She wonders if he is testing their loyalty. She frowns and admits she doesn't understand. And even before this, Sylphie recalls Alan saying he wanted to grow yams. She questions if he will really be growing them even though she is there. Since she has her original powers as an ancient elf back, she believes he should know by reading the appraisal scroll that she has advanced tree magic that can help grow plants. She thinks by using it, she can immediately have it germinate, grow, and bear fruit. She sees Alan tilling repeatedly. She insists that if he just gives her an order, he won't have to labor by himself. Sylphie stands alone, deep in thought. She says she doesn't know what his goal is. She admits she is grateful to him for restoring her body, but despite having a great skill like restoration and owning them, there is no sign of him wanting their bodies or using his power to realize his ambitions. After winning them over, she wonders, does he plan to do something? To confirm her suspicions, Sylphie decides to follow Alan. She observes him visiting a clinic and notices that he heals people without using the restoration skill. If he were to use it, the church would surely take notice, granting him any position and honors he desires. Sylphie just can't understand why this fellow works here for chump change. She sees how grateful people are towards Alan, and now she finds it difficult to concentrate on her mission. Sylphie still can't understand why Alan pretends to be a good person, even though he is someone who buys slaves. Still, Alan doesn't want anything from the slaves he owns. Sylphie feels like going crazy thinking about exactly what this man Alan is thinking anyway. Meanwhile, a glimpse into Alan's thoughts shows him looking at a cloud and finding it shaped like a tit. Since then, around 3 months have passed. From Alan's point of view, the yams are harvested after growing for 3 months. Sylphie can't resist and finally asks him why he isn't using her to raise food. Alan jokingly wonders if she expects him to put them to work in the fields. He assures her that he is perfectly fine managing on his own, thanks to his restoration skills. Moreover, Alan wants to brag about how he raised all this stuff by himself. Still, he appreciates their concern. That's when Sylphie tries to confirm with Alan whether he knows that with her tree magic, she can harvest crops immediately. The next moment, she gives him a demo and shows some magic. His eyes widen with wonder at what he deems a cheat-level skill. He can't help but wonder if Sylphie has been hiding this power all along. Seeing his puzzled expression, Sylphie asks if he has been unaware of her abilities. She points out that such information is readily available in her appraisal scroll. It's the same damn paper that he cannot read at all. For a second, he wonders if he should tell them the truth. He is fine being a baby who can't read or write, but he just can't proclaim it, fearing they might think their master is a baby. This is already well into deviant territory. It's too shameful for Alan as their master. A man has to look good before a girl. He wonders if he should tell them an awkward lie. He will immediately be branded as a perverted yam lover, and the girls won't spare him another look. He has already been looked at quite enough. And so, for some reason, Alan continues to single-mindedly grow these yams that could be raised in a second. He has to calm down and think quickly. He needs to come up with something that won't make him look like a pervert or diminish his worth. If possible, Alan needs to find an excuse that raises his image in their eyes. That's when Alan tells Sylphie that magic is a two-sided coin, and depending on the user, it can become either a poison or a cure. This is why Alan decides not to force others to use magic. When the time comes, he will tell the concerned person to use magic of their own will. He adds that people think they can do anything they want, and this is the scariest thing in the world. Yet, who the hell is he to tell them all this? Alan himself used to think like this, believing he could do anything with these girls. He used restoration for the sole reason of making out with them. Alan tells them that there's no need to force themselves to use magic. He feels so freaking embarrassed right now. He then declares that they should go harvesting. From Sylphie's point of view, even if one tries to put up a good front, that person still can't help but show their real nature after seeing Sylphie's magic. However, as one glosses it over, the eyes reveal the true feelings. This is exactly what Sylphie hopes to achieve by doing this. Well, his expressions do change, but it seems like a deep wound has opened in his heart. She feels as though Alan is suffering. The more he speaks, his words sound like he's trying to persuade himself. Sylvie is sure it's no lie. Alan has experienced the same. In his past, he was conceited, thinking he could do anything, losing himself in his restoration power. But then something happened that completely changed his views, which is why Alan now hides his own powers. Now Sylvie feels ashamed for flaunting her magic and trying to trick Alan. Calling herself Cora Sylvie, she calls out to Noel and asks if she agrees. Noel asks what she needs, and Sylvie explains that she wants to talk about the future and what exactly they want for Alan. Meanwhile, Alan is completely surprised and confused. The next day, when he sees all the plantations, he is shocked to the core and can't understand what has happened overnight. He realizes that all this has been done skillfully by Sylvie, who possesses a planting cheat that even overshadows him, a reincarnator. Although he wishes to become a talented lord of agriculture, Alan accepts what happened since Sylvie achieved it. She greets Alan with a good morning and mentions that she was harvesting too. He asks if she used magic. She confirms it, adding that she hadn't acted hastily but had done it willingly. Alan recalls this was what he said yesterday, wondering if she is trying to find fault within him. This is Alan's perfect plan to leverage modern knowledge and become unparalleled. However, he feels Sylvie is trying to act rudely towards him. Nonetheless, he thanks her for the magic and reassures her she doesn't need to force herself. With his showtime over, Alan still has something to demonstrate, a do-it-yourself cheat to embed concrete, a material that doesn't exist in this world. He explains how concrete can make buildings sturdy and improve their living conditions. Noel, intrigued by Alan's activities, expresses her desire to join him and help out, marking the first time she speaks to him like this. She asks him what he is making, smelling him working on something. Alan explains his plan to build a new house with concrete, describing how living in the crumbling monastery feels like camping. Noel demands to know the concept, and Alan patiently explains everything in detail. He finds it gratifying when a girl listens intently to him, happily teaching Noel everything she wants to know. Once Noel understands the concept, she instructs Alan to sit and watch, indicating that she is ready to take charge. Noel uses her extraction skill, and Alan sees how she obtains clay and quartz, the raw materials for cement, in a blink of an eye. This is no good. It's going to take away all of Alan's contributions. Next, Noel uses pulverize, and Alan realizes that Noel also holds a cheat skill. Within a while, the cement is ready. Noel now requires Sylvie's help to grow bamboo sprouts. By the way, it was Alan who said all this so proudly but receives no credit. Recently, he also notices that both Sylvie and Noel have started talking to each other more and more. It seems they are joining hands while Alan just gets so full of himself. He definitely needs to watch out. To be honest, Alan feels like a useless being here. With Noel as the manufacturing master and Sylvie as the plant master, things become so easy. Alan wonders why things turn out like this. He should have been the highlight and the one flirting with the girls. Alan wonders what exactly is going to happen to him afterward. At this very moment, Alan still doesn't know that since the time he bought both of them, he will surprisingly be worshipped as a demon king. And in the future, Alan will be regarded as a threat by a hero and will experience a life full of ups and downs. The goddess feels that this boy will definitely turn out to be entertaining, and she desires to make fun of him. She also desperately waits to see how things will unfold. According to Noelle, what Alan told her is indeed interesting, and her dwarven instincts scream with excitement. It is her first time experiencing this. And doing just as Alan says brings results. This is sagacious. At this moment, Noel realizes that Alan is not just a simple nobody. His restoration skill is great, and not flaunting it is even greater. Furthermore, she admires his willingness to share his knowledge without reservation. So, everything about him is just great. What's more, Alan teaches her everything, and as an elder dwarf, this makes her so happy. Sylvie also thinks that they can put their trust in Alan, and Noelle shares the same thought. She too wants to take the weight off Alan's shoulders. When Alan wakes up, he is delighted to find 2 more monasteries standing there, which surprises him greatly. Spotting Noelle, he approaches her, and she casually informs him that she has made 3, 1 for each of them. She delivers this shocking revelation with remarkable nonchalance. As Noelle comes closer, Alan can't help but find her incredibly cute, like a doll. She then reveals that she worked hard for him, Sylvie, and herself, and now she wants to be praised by her master. Alan has always anticipated this moment, but now he feels embarrassed. Sylvie winks at him, encouraging him to praise Noelle immediately. Alan suddenly realizes that both of them are teaming up against him, making him feel rather helpless. In other words, he suspects that the girls have likely discussed him during their gossip sessions, possibly criticizing his lack of money, talents, and his tendency to show off with his restoration skills. Alan feels like an overall incompetent person in their eyes. He imagines they might have even labeled him as a filthy otaku, skinny, inexperienced, a total virgin. In their eyes, living with him might even be considered dangerous, which is why Noel has built separate places for them to live safely. Alan is sure that they are making fun of him and calling him a swine. He just needs to calm down now. He has already come this far, so there's no way he is backing down. He is now in a position to praise Noel, which means he is allowed to pat her head. All is grist that comes to the mill. Alan just doesn't want others to look down on him as a pervert. Alan pats her head and thanks Noel. She smiles gladly at him. Alan feels as though his heart is being purified. Her hair is so damn silky smooth. Sylphie witnesses the situation and can't believe this intimacy. She feels jealous but tries to calm down, deciding not to be jealous of simple head patting. Sylphie resolves that starting tomorrow, she will increase the number of harvestable plants. Of course, she has no ulterior motives, and Alan already considers her indispensable. As a couple more months pass, Sylphie notices that Alan, as usual, is busy tending the fields by himself. It seems like he has forgotten about the magic they possess. Magic in their world is divided into 5 basic attributes: fire, water, wind, metal, and earth. Sylphie has an evolved wind attribute and an aptitude for plants, while Noel excels in fire, metal, and earth attributes. Their compatibility is exceptional. Both for food and shelter, they have utilized all their magic, and Alan has never once forced them to use it against their will. He isn't driven by desires, nor does he seek conflicts. According to Sylphie, Alan lives his life like a hermit, with his only obsession being yams. Nevertheless, he is a fully developed person with his own desires and aspirations. Sylphie is certain that he has things he wants to do, and now she wants to uncover the real Alan and his true feelings. She wonders if he has been lonely all this time, but she knows this isn't the case. If it were, there would have been no need for him to choose them. It is time to reveal the truth. Sylphie directly asks Alan and wants to hear from him the true reason why he bought them. Ahem. Alan just wants to have sex with them, nothing more. Of course, there's no way he is going to say this out loud. Meanwhile, Noelle pokes her head out and tells Alan that she, too, is interested in hearing the reason. It is a fact that they are rare species, but Alan just uses them to make up for deficiencies around him. They wonder if he has anything else he wants them to do. Are they really kidding him? The girls continue to ask Alan various questions. Alan, on the other hand, feels grateful that they gave him food and a home, so there's no need to tap into their potential anymore. Even if they tell him to lick their feet, he would do it obediently. Moreover, Alan, the pervert, would gladly do this. Both Sylphie and Noel decide to show Alan what else they can do. Sylphie shows off her rare tree magic, and Noel displays her high-speed refining. According to Alan, these two are utterly trying to destroy his self-esteem. Well, if this is their intention, Alan is ready to play along. He tells them to hear it carefully. His desire, as he says it without pulling any punches. No, not this one. Alan declares that, for starters, he wants to free the world from hunger. Of course, both of them are surprised. He wonders if they would run away. If he weren't the eldest son, Alan would have died from self-loathing right here. Sylphie really doubts Alan, as what he says sounds like an ideal befitting of a god. She then notices how Alan holds that yam in his hand like a treasure and his expressions from time to time. They look at each other and conclude that their master holds in his heart an ideal far beyond what they can even imagine or hope for. Sylphie still can't fully trust him, but she wants to follow him and see the world he wishes to create. She declares that if this is Alan's goal, then they just need land to cultivate. Well, due to Alan's made-up excuse, his doubtful heroic tale in another world takes its first step forward. In this world, there are only 2 types of people: losers and winners, those who plan and those who follow, those who exploit and those who are exploited. Alan is now busy exchanging foodstuff and complaining that Mizuki's exchange rate is too high. Mizuki teases him, saying that she is still a growing kid. Alan remains strict in trading and shows no mercy even for his little sister. He now sits wondering if his past life's little sister Mizuki is doing well. For him, this is his only regret, not being with her. Meanwhile, Sylphie calls out to him, and Alan snaps back from his daydream. This isn't good, as he has once again tried to escape reality while reminiscing about the past. Sylphie sighs and asks if he heard her. She is all set to cultivate the land and erase hunger from the world. Now that he has said what he didn't want to, he has no choice but to follow through. Alan feels disappointed, as such an intellectual beauty like Sylphie should have been vaguely aware of his ulterior motives. In reality, it is Alan being a coward, unable to take back his words, which falls right into her expectations. At this rate, Alan is dancing in the palm of her hand. This shitty virgin ass is really trying hard to be a goody two-shoes. Alan imagines all kinds of stupid things and wonders if this is the beginning of his otherworldly harem life. No, damn, he can still fight. Alan still has a bunch of modern knowledge up his sleeve, much of it learned from the guy people called Professor back in elementary school. Since things have come to this, he decides to get his revenge using his cheap knowledge. The goddess wonders if Alan has actually learned anything. Alan then informs both of them that they are now going to make fertilizers. Curious, both of them want to know what this is. Alan explains that fertilizer is something that supplements the soil's nutrients used for growing crops. He is certain they can grow things even on barren land thanks to Sylphie's tree magic, but it would be hard to sustain for long. Sylphie agrees. Furthermore, Alan tells them about crop rotation and explains a truly perfect cycle of agricultural revolution. Look, first, they need to make hatchets and hoes to widen the land. He notices that Sylphie is awestruck and speechless. Well, there's no woman in the world who likes a vain and boastful man, but Noel does. She approaches Alan and asks him to tell her the details, as she wants to make it immediately. This time, Alan wants to shine, but Sylphie tells her it's better if he does it. Sylphie intervenes and tells Alan that throwing a tantrum here isn't okay. This elf always treats Alan like a petulant child. Noel clings on to him and demands an explanation, eager to make fertilizers. And so, Alan explains the whole procedure. He is so done with this super modern knowledge coughing up session. Noel finds it fascinating and declares that she is starting immediately. Now for lunch, they are having yam soup, but before that, Noel wants to show them something. She opens the door and shows off the hatchets, hoes, and some fertilizers that she managed to make. Both Sylphie and Alan can't believe their eyes. Noel makes a note of the ratios to make adjustments later, and Alan finds her resembling someone from the mysterious TV series Galileo. Alan thanks Noel for her hard work, and she is happy, as this will make Alan's work much easier. Now, Noel is in charge of manufacturing, Sylphie is in charge of cultivation, and Alan is in charge of land reclamation and logging. Well, the odd jobs fall on him. Quite a fitting role for a reincarnator. These two girls steal Alan's thunder and toss chores on him. Moreover, they keep asking for praises. This isn't exploitation, since he is still their master. Sylphie feels jealous again, but is helpless as usual. She suggests that they have lunch first and then begin cultivation. Sylphie is indeed curious and ponders Alan's desire to eliminate hunger, though she doubts whether this is truly possible. Still, she is impressed by his vast amount of knowledge. She thinks that for a long time, Alan must have struggled alone to make his ideal a reality. Sylphie is sure that the reason he bought her is because only an ancient elf can freely control the tree magic that stimulates plant growth. Besides this, Alan doesn't force her to work, nor orders her with the slave crest. Honestly, respecting a slave's independence is just great. Alan notices that Sylphie seems restless and asks if she said something. Sylphie cuts him off and asks both of them if they would like a second serving. Noel agrees and accepts the offer. After this, Alan gets back to work and praises Noel as his work proceeds smoothly. Even though things haven't gone the way he initially wanted, he is sure there is still a way forward. He uses his regeneration skill, which can even bring fertile soil to the surface. Alan now wants Sylphie and Noel to praise him for a job well done. He enjoys patting their heads, but now wants to be patted and appreciated himself. Alan's struggles continue well into the evening. Noel notices the cultivation done with restoration is amazing. She is glad that Alan is genuinely working towards the goal of eliminating hunger and believes that's why he bought her. Still, to entrust them with such wisdom without reserve, even though it would be easy to use it for selfish reasons behind his back, surprises her. She wonders if he believes that slaves won't betray him. Well, that isn't the case after all. Alan has not even once given them an order. She understands that he trusts them, and they feel they haven't been kind enough to respond in return. Noel then swears upon an elder dwarf's name that she will support Alan. She is certain that Sylphie feels the same. They both decide to give their 100%. There is no doubt that Alan desires for them to take action of their own volition, and so they resolve to do everything in their power to make his and their ideals a reality. Alan remains completely unaware of what is happening here. Meanwhile, the goddess is pleased to see this lazy virgin ass working hard, but Alan warns her to stop poking her nose in his business and trying to find faults with him. Alan has thought about this from the start and wonders if all goddesses are like her. Bitter as hell, the goddess laughs and tells Alan that he made this choice for himself. Making fun of Alan is all she wants. Well, it is true that Alan is free because Sylphie and Noel work well together. As for the long-awaited Fufu event, there is no sign of it ever happening. The excitement of getting intimate with the girl seems to be fading, and Alan is living the life of a retired old man. Well, if Alan doesn't have any hobbies, he could just find some. Alan gets an idea and goes to disturb Noelle. She is perfectly fine with him disturbing her, and Alan shows her what she needs to make. He purposely stands close to her and feels her soft arm. There aren't any sizes listed, so Alan instructs Noelle to make it such that they can place it on the table. Since he can't read or write, he draws a simple illustration instead. Noel agrees to make it and demands to know what he will use it for. Alan tells her that it's something he needs. Well, it's an eye-catching product meant to bring joy to both of them. They can enjoy games together, talk more, and who knows what else. By taking advantage of a punishment game, Alan could even get his 18+ plot development. Noelle understands and starts working on it immediately. Now, one wonders if Alan will become the one who exploits others or not. Sylphie notices that Alan and Noel are making something in the workshop. She eavesdrops on the conversation, but words like chess, reverie, shogi, and Jenga all sound alien to her. She wonders if they are doing something for recreation. She feels compelled to ask Alan what this is all about, but remembers that Alan wants to rid the world of hunger. So why does he want to do this? Sylphie asks whether she can join them. Alan says, of course she can join. As he smiles, Sylphie notices it and thinks there must be some hidden meaning behind it. She looks closely at Alan and feels that he gives off fake impressions of being a lethargic young man. Sylphie becomes determined to understand Alan better in order to support him. At the table, Alan shows Sylphie and Noel how to play Jenga and Reversi. Sylphie is taken aback by the sheer fun and intricacies of the board games. Then Alan proposes to place a bet on the game to make it more interesting. He says the winner can give the loser any order they want. Sylphie is unable to comprehend Alan's proposal. She gets lost in thoughts about what this game betting could mean. Can it help end hunger? How can this empower a slave to give orders? Suddenly, Noel interjects, saying they both need to do what they can. Sylphie agrees with Noel, and both are ready to play with Alan. After making their negotiations, Alan declares that they should start their battle with Reversi. Then Sylphie wonders how they can win if Alan is the one who created the game and knows all the rules. She thinks it's a bad move. The game begins, and Alan makes mistakes, ultimately losing the match. Sylphie is sure that Alan never intended to win and deliberately lost. Forcing them to give orders to their master, Noel becomes excited that they won the match. She tells Alan that she wants ownership rights for the recreational items, while Sylphie wants to be registered at the Merchants Guild. Alan is relieved that they didn't ask for their release from slavery, but something else is already cooking in his mind. He wants to trick them into 18+ development. Later, Sylphie registers at the Merchants Guild, and Noel registers at the Alchemists Guild. Alan suggests that since they are in the imperial capital, they should buy some things. Sylphie is happy to see Alan enjoying himself. 2 weeks after registering Sylphie and Noel at their respective guilds, Alan becomes engrossed in shogi training. He sets some rules for Sylphie, but she tells him that he is weak and beats him in the game. Noel reminds Sylphie that they have to go to the capital. Alan tells them to return before dinner. He feels disappointed that he still hasn't figured out a way to get intimate with his slaves. He thinks alcohol might help. Suddenly, the goddess appears and interrupts Alan by reading his thoughts. She says that Alan is unreliable, which is why his slaves are ditching him and going out to work. She further stresses that Alan is short-sighted, thinking games like shogi and reversi are enough to entertain his slaves. Alan's thoughts run wild as he imagines his slaves selling themselves to someone else. He rushes to the capital, worried about how poorly he has managed his slaves. He finds them in the capital and says they can ask for anything they want. Sylphie wells up with emotion. At the bank, Noel asks the manager to reveal Alan's bank balance. Alan is petrified, but when he hears that he has 3 million dole, he can't believe his ears. He learns that his recreational games are very popular in the capital, and his slaves are behind it. Sylphie tells Alan that he's receiving royalties from all the sales. Alan is happy and announces that they should buy some new things. But Sylphie and Noel have already acquired 50 more slaves for him. They introduce the newcomers to Alan: Ellie, Tina, Ray, Aura, Karen, Emma, and Arya, which makes his stomach tighten as he realizes the scale of the mess he's gotten himself into. Sylphie tells him he's now expected to act as the village chief of the slaves, and that everyone is counting on him. With the responsibility of providing a livelihood for over 50 people suddenly thrust upon him, Alan starts to question what kind of path his isekai life is about to take. In the next chapter, Alan lies on his bed and notes that in just one day he has gotten 50 more slaves to care for, contemplating whether he has made a mistake somewhere. He believes he did nothing wrong and quickly shifts the blame, claiming Sylphie and Noel are at fault. A couple of hours ago at the shop, Sylphie points to a group of girls and declares she will buy all the girls from the back. The shopkeeper calculates the total price, but she is warning him not to take her for a fool. She says that taking into account the girls' wounds, the price should go 2 digits down. The shopkeeper protests, saying he needs to make money with this business. Sylphie confidently states that the sum will amount to less than what would be spent on the upkeep of unsold stock. Sylphie's negotiating prowess is unbeatable as she faces the slave trader on equal terms, deliberately referring to the slaves as property. Alan thinks on how, if she were to show compassion to the girls like he did, she'd surely have been taken advantage of, like he was. He watches in awe as she argues down the veteran merchant with ease, describing it as taking candy from a child. Sylphie comforts a girl who trembles with guilt, saying it's okay, telling her not to be hasty and to take it slow. Alan expresses admiration, exclaiming, "Wow, Sylphie." He is impressed that she can handle the slaves in such a smart way. He yells out, saying he always wanted to do that himself instead. He says she's beautiful, smart, impeccably stylish, and smells so good. Alan admits she has the agriculture cheat and is good at being a merchant. He questions if she is the protagonist, and also, he can barely catch up to her high specs. Alan notes that he is a reincarnator and demands respect, otherwise he'll simply die on the spot. Meanwhile, Noel tells Sylphie that she is sure that this one's skills will blossom soon. Alan wonders whether Noel brought up something. She concludes that one can get a highly precise alchemy skill, and with training, she will easily acquire it. So in this world, there are both hereditary and acquired skills. She elaborates that whether they manifest or not, the term blossom depends on the individual. Alan worries there's no skill to detect a skill yet to blossom, and it's also not written on a slave's appraisal scroll. He wonders whether she has the analysis cheat, then bids goodbye to his presence. Back in his room, he admits he doesn't understand anything and has no time to catch his breath. He decides he'll need to come up with a strategy for the future. Switching perspectives, Sylphie affirms that there shouldn't be any misunderstanding now. After all, Alan appreciating their efforts. She recalls that at that time, she couldn't stop her tears from flowing, but he didn't see them. She reassures that he can ask her anything he wants. She thinks on how she always worried if she disappointed him or not. Receiving so many items for recreation made her think she needed to earn a lot, or else. She remembers Alan not trying to interfere, only asking to play games every day, and he always let her win. He reminds her that he hasn't been serious once yet. She laughs internally at the way he tried to explain away his defeat like a little child. She believes there is no way for someone to come up with all this just to be weak, and it was surely for the sole reason of preparing her for handling merchants. She concludes that he can't hide his compassion and warm heart from them. To herself, she decides to keep it a secret that she finds this side of him endearing. Reflecting deeply, she admits that slaves, in most cases, are beings exploited and worked to the bone. And yet, Alan took them into his warm hands. Obviously, she believes there's nobody who wouldn't let themselves melt in them. That's why she and Noel, for the sake of Alan's dearest wish, to rid the world of hunger, they bought the necessary personnel. They knock on Alan's door, asking if they can enter. He says yes, tells them not to be so nervous, and lets them sit wherever they want. They respond that there is no need and they are okay. Moved to Alan's side, he stammers, wondering whether they don't want to spend more time in a guy's room or if it's because the room smells. He says if they are tired, they should just rest, and tells them they did great with the recreation items. He thinks that though he can't deny the fact they are stealing his achievements left and right, he must take the attitude of a man who honestly praises one's efforts. Smiling at them, Alan declares that as their master, he is proud of them, and now, immediately, he'll go and try to fix his situation. Sylphie asks if they didn't earn quite a lot of money. Noel says the swine should use that money and quickly release them from the slave crests, but Alan wants to make an impression before that situation comes to pass. He decides to put off trying to get laid on a back burner, and he still has the eye candy and inadvertent touch plans. Alan responds with a blunt no. Sylphie comments that they didn't do anything for him to praise them, and Noel agrees. Alan questions internally whether this is sarcasm. After earning 3 million dole, Alan feels uneasy under their gazes and mutters to himself that he can't stand it, and he chooses to proceed with what he thought up. He straightens up and announces that he needs to tell them his plans, going forward, and asks if they are listening. First, he states they will take the money spent on each slave as their debt. When they repay it, he thinks he will remove their slave crests. He explains further that's why they should put efforts into agriculture and commerce. Everyone will provide with their labor, and it will be converted into money and merchandise. They will pay wages with that money, so each girl won't have to suffer by repaying that debt. He asks what they think. He declares in his mind that he'll call it a slave's debt repayment restructurization. The slaves will get their freedom. Sylphie and Noel will collect the money, and he will be freed from the duty of providing a livelihood for 50 slaves. He calls it the very picture of a smooth settlement. He concludes that's what his run-of-the-mill corporate slave's mind could come up with. The responsibility of a CEO to provide a livelihood for his employees just makes his head hurt. With this, no one will oppose. Sylphie and Noel interrupt and lean in, asking if he plans to let everyone he restored go after recovering the purchase price and whether he understands their real worth. Noel points out that after blossoming, their value will go up even more. She believes Alan should rethink that. Sylphie struggles and says she fails to understand such a plan. She reminds him that his goal is to rid the world of hunger and questions whether he wouldn't need talented personnel. Noel nods and says she is of the same mind. Internally, he thinks that his goal is to have a fufu with them both. He questions whether he dares say that, though. Sylphie really knows where to hit for it to hurt the most. He shouts internally that he will bullshit his way through. Alan smiles and says that if possible, he doesn't want to take advantage of them being slaves. If he had to say, he wants fellow comrades who walk beside him of their own will, rather than those who can't disobey. That's who he wants to share his beliefs with. So if there'd be girls who'd want to stay after repaying their debt, he wouldn't mind it, he guesses. Alan presents the whole plan. Noel and the other dwarves, using their alchemy, will be producing farm tools and fertilizer. And by using the characteristics of the elves, a race beloved by nature, they'll increase the productivity of growing yams, wheat, and soybeans. And there's also a secret plan. Cooking. With the 3 pillars he mentions, they will develop new products and procure funds by using the Merchants Guild. He names the plan Alan's Mix. Noel and Sylphie look at him silently. Alan watches their reaction and nervously asks if he made it work, and Sylphie sighs. She looks away and says she thought he wouldn't surprise her anymore, but once again, she's at a loss. Sylphie declares that, then, she will allow herself to do as she pleases as well. Noel wholeheartedly agrees with Sylphie. Alan thinks to himself that the road to Fuckland is still a never-ending one. A virgin's road, he adds, you could say. On Sylphie's side, Sylphie, trembling, wonders how she could make such a fool of herself. She thinks she didn't recognize Alan's forward thinking for what it was, and admits she couldn't give him an answer out of confusion. She questions how she had the audacity to act shocked toward her savior. She recalls what Alan said, that he didn't expect Sylphie to react this way. He thinks he believed Sylphie would surely understand him. Sylphie panics, wondering what she should do and whether she disappointed him. She remembers that Alan said he wants fellow comrades, so he wants slaves to be able to object to his decisions. Noel calls out to Sylphie, asking if she's okay. Sylphie replies to Noel, saying that yes, she's okay. Sylphie now thinks that, after considering it carefully, it does make sense. She notes that he's someone with the desire to rid the world of hunger after all. Noel reflects that it's clear he's not fond of slavery being institutionalized and admits she was overly eager. She adds that he should at least agree that he saved those girls by using restoration, and Sylphie agrees. Sylphie's memory resurfaces as she thinks that the ones being bought are essentially their past selves, just girls deprived of a future due to defects in their bodies. She says it's okay now and acknowledges that Alan had it rough. She smiles softly, thinking he didn't ask for compensation, and his actions were born out of kindness. However, she thinks he should be greedier, and Noel agrees, saying that at present, the girls they bought are all perplexed. Sylphie sighs and affirms it as true. They need to explain his designs to them. Sylphie believes that in time, everyone will understand Alan's kindness, generosity, and intelligence. She recalls that already. His selfless usage of restoration when it matters the most is etched in her mind as his greatness. No. She resolves that she must properly monitor Alan so as not to let him unwittingly seduce the other girls. Noel, confused, responds by asking Sylphie. Then, flustered, she blurts out to forget she said anything and urges Noel to go explain everything. Sylphie addresses the group with that said. As compensation for their labor, they will be paying them salary and asks if anyone has questions. One girl asks if the conditions aren't very convenient for them and she doesn't want to doubt their master, who saved them. Sylphie thinks, just as she expected, remembering how Alan introduced himself by saying that after restoring them, normally a master like that couldn't exist. Sylphie responds, saying she's sorry, but that's just how Alan is. It'd be better to get used to it quickly. One of the girls calls out, addressing her as Lady Sylphie. She asks if she should act more familiar and call her Sylphie. Sylphie responds by saying yes, that's right. The girl says that she'll get the story straight. The girl's name is Aura. She questions if Sylphie is saying they don't need to service Lord Alan, that is to say, surrender their bodies to him. Sylphie responds with yes, right. Internally, Sylphie acknowledges Aura as a high elf, the same age as her, and notes that she wanted to ask her to help with her work. She is glad that Aura was the one who stepped forward. She notes internally, no wonder they are unsettled. Sylphie narrates that elves are the race admired as the symbol of beauty. It'd be a lie to say they aren't proud of that fact. That's not to say they'd want to give their bodies to an unknown man, but to not even be a target of attention will make one doubt their attractiveness, wouldn't it? For an elf to be in this kind of situation is the most disgraceful thing. She thinks that other races will probably find it hard to understand, but she does get this confusing feeling stemming from that contradiction. But Aura wonders aloud if it could be that Alan's not interested in women. Sylphie says she doesn't think so. She admits that she did notice how he looked at her breasts and her behind in addition to her legs. Occasionally, though, Sylphie smiles and thinks this discrepancy from the usual is cute in its own right. She admits that she does inadvertently end up moving her legs like this, though it's not that good a representation, but if she wants to be seen doing it. Suddenly, Aura interrupts, calling her name Sylphie. Sylphie says anyway, despite the things that are scarcely believable or agreeable, Alan is not a man who will hurt others without reason. She swears by the sacred tree, saying that much. As an ancient elf, she will swear. As such, she implores them to pretend to act as if they're being deceived. The girls feel at ease now, as Sylphie bravely swears by the sacred tree, noting that Alan seemed like a kind person. She then turns to Aura and asks if she agrees. Aura responds that she does, and with a sultry smile adds that of course she does. After all, Lord Alan has piqued her interest. The perspective shifts to Aura's side as she introduces herself with a graceful air, stating that it is a good day. She gazes at her own reflection, admiringly declaring how beautiful she is and how perfectly the new clothes fit her. She admits that everyone, including herself, sees her as a narcissist, and she openly confesses her deep love for herself. That is exactly why. A flashback surfaces. After being caught and put in a cell, she burned her skin off. She thinks that if it is her fate to be sold to an unknown man as a foo-foo slave to be disgraced, then it's better to become a liability to the trashy merchant and die. A lethal flaw found in the heart that's supposed to control the core of magic. In this world, just this reason is plenty for someone to fall into slavery. Even a great race such as the High Elves is not an exception. She suffered in despair at losing both her beauty and magic and only being able to wait for death, grasping the last fleeting fragments of dignity before such a time she saw. She narrates that her master, Alan, and an ancient elf, Sylphie, are there. She sees Lord Alan cultivating land under the watch of a slave. Lord Alan is described as the possessor of peculiar sensibilities and, dare she say it, a weirdo. But as Sylphie told her that he, more than anyone else, understands the great power of restoration. That is why he plays a fool. Aura and the others will come to understand him, she is sure. Even still, Aura questions internally, isn't this just way too stupid? Aura notes that thanks to the restoration, their powers returned in full, and market value jumped sky high. As the holder of appraisal scrolls, Lord Alan should know this. And yet, he went along with a contract with the Holy Spirit that must be upheld at all costs. For what purpose? She cannot grasp in the slightest. She thinks to herself that if it's Lord Alan who healed her heart defect she despised, she would not be averse to giving him her body. That just makes her incredibly wet. As a race, elves are a bundle of dignity and vanity. They're women in exchange for flatly refusing any and all base men settling for anyone, toward a person they take an interest in who won't show any interest in return. They burn with passion. At that time, Aura wonders whether Alan might not be interested in women, though Sylphie does not seem to think so. Aura recalls Sylphie's words and concludes that she had the perfect expression of a woman in love. She remembers the goddess-like look on Sylphie's face and admits that it aroused her deeply. She notes her weakness for both beautiful women and sweet girls. If this is part of Alan's plan to make an elf like her fall, then he must be highly skilled. A seasoned veteran on the battlefield of love. Aura resolves that, at all costs, she must ask him for a bout. But first, she needs to offer a light morning greeting. She peeks toward Alan, who is working outside. In Aura vision, she sees Alan calling out restoration and proudly declaring that he has plowed it quite well, urging Sylphie to look. She murmurs, flustered and amused, imagining her pleading to be praised. She softly calls out, referring to him as her cutie. Alan appears to react, and she wonders if he heard her. Suddenly, Alan turns his gaze toward her. Aura freezes, flustered, and questions whether she might have angered him. He stares at her intently with a piercing, unwavering gaze. Aura notices that he is fixedly staring at her and wonders why, even though the beautiful her has appeared in a new outfit. She recalls Sylphie's words, but Alan continues to stare without change. Panic sets in as she considers the possibility that Lord Alan does not even register her standing right in front of him. She trembles, refusing to believe that could be true. Suddenly, Alan cheerfully calls out to her, inviting her to play reversi. Aura snaps to attention with a startled response. The perspective shifts to Alan's side as he, visibly shaken, insists that even if Sylphie played him like a fiddle and made him the village chief without his knowledge, he still has his self-respect. When Aura softly murmurs how cute he is, Alan shivers harder, thinking that damn Aura is adding fuel to the fire, treating him this way just because he is only useful for plowing fields. He invites her to play reversi, noting how long it has been, and snaps. He declares to himself that if things go well, he wants to use the game as a chance to touch her titi. Alan reassures himself that there is no need to worry, that he is calm. He steps forward, reasoning that in terms of position, he is still the village chief. If this were a corporation, he would be the CEO, and any missteps could be disastrous. The thought makes him panic, and he begins frantically pacing, acknowledging that there is no guarantee it will not turn out that way. He reminds himself that from now on, he must act with prudence. Internally, he admits that just moments ago, he tried so hard not to let his eyes wander to Aura's legs. Alan confidently states that he wants to see her true strength and urges her to fight him seriously. He proposes that since the opportunity is there, the winner should be allowed to give the loser one order, anything goes, and asks how she feels about it. He then adds with excitement that in a proper punishment game, everything is legal. In his imagination, Alan envisions Aura's chest and says that if it's a punishment, he'd be able to stare without reserve at her plentiful fruits, which he desperately tried not to do before. He cheers internally, thinking that if anything goes, he'd even be able to touch and be caught within them. He adds that Sylphie is a beauty with shapely TT, but Aura is a beauty with huge honkers, and that in itself is rather great. Her charm is similar to a gravure idol, he thinks. Yet, her demeanor is reminiscent of a prideful, noble daughter. He marvels at the truly amazing marriage of purity. Aura addresses him, calling out to Lord Alan. Alan responds by saying they should begin. He expresses confidence, believing that after all his training with Sylphie and the others, he has become stronger and declares that this match will be his. Aura states that with the board now filled with her color, it would signify her victory. She declares checkmate. Turning to Alan, she remarks that this must be how checkmate works in shogi. She continues, asking if that means when he breaks the Jenga tower, it counts as his loss. Alan sits frozen in place. He quietly admits to himself that he has been thoroughly overwhelmed. No, completely trounced. He quickly adds that he has not been serious yet, just to make that clear. Aura responds with a curious affirmation. Alan calls out to Sylphie as he looks toward her, shouting that Aura is bullying him. He accuses Aura of having no desire at all for her master to win. Aura blushes and softly remarks how adorable he is. Alan clutches his head and declares her to be Aura the ultra-romantic. The perspective shifts to Aura's side as she considers that, although he told her to fight seriously, perhaps he had expected some degree of deference instead. Still, she reflects, Lord Alan is the one who proposed these rather deep games. She wonders why he played like a child, or worse, like a clueless monkey. She notes that the small animal aura he gave off was truly amusing, yet regardless, she is the winner. She muses to herself about what kind of order she should give him. Sylphie then interrupts, remarking that it was a good work at completely failing. Aura turns in shock and stammers internally, questioning whether she truly failed. She flashes back to how she was beside herself with a giddiness just moments ago. Thinking back on it, she had ended the match with such forced boldness that she completely let her guard down around Lord Alan. She admits to herself that no, she had entirely lost it, one could say. She begins to wonder if this had been his aim all along. It dawns on her that he only pretended to let her play him, when in reality, she was the one being played, completely failing. Aura trembles, acknowledging inwardly that she cannot refute it. That must mean she is already dancing in the palm of his hand, a truly terrifying person. Sylphie states that she agrees if she tried to get closer with half-baked feelings, it won't end with you being simply burned. She continues, noting that as someone of the same race, she understands the feelings involved. She adds that Aura should already know it herself. The one who falls in love first will always lose. She observes the aberration that is Lord Alan and the one closest to him, Sylphie. Even she must take her hat off to such a brilliant woman as her. Nobody will be able to take her place, she is sure. Still, she says she will take the warning to heart with all she has. After all, the more adversities stand before her, the more excited she gets by them. The goddess suddenly appears with a grand announcement, declaring that the reincarnated Alan, inventor of recreational items, is Aura's designated punching bag. She claims that if someone were to write about him, it would go something like that. Alan protests, urging her to stop with the harsh commentary. The goddess states that in the realm of goddesses, he ranks number 1 among those whom no one would want to be reincarnated as. She adds that perhaps she should share more. Alan reacts nervously, pleading for her not to continue, admitting he does not want to hear it. The goddess guesses he'd already have some stopgap measures, but Alan denies it being stopgap, explaining he just runs through simulations and prepares responses. Alan thinks on how, keeping in mind those rumors, he gives his first order as village chief. He lifts the ban on allowing slaves to play games and lets them enjoy them as they please. Of course, without getting his approval for that. He also reduces the time for hard labor to a minimum. It's not like he wants to create a white company or anything. If the village's economy collapses, he declares he wasn't the only one to only eat, sleep, and play reversi, and he'll have them know. So he'd be able to say that. The goddess interjects, so he just shirks responsibility. Alan insists that providing employee benefits to the best of his ability and enacting them is the duty of the CEO, the village chief, that is, himself. She comments that he's good at weaseling his way. Alan reflects that lifting the ban brings about a new method of torture for him. A girl addresses him as village chief and asks if he would like to play with her. He recalls, as per Sylphie, Noel, and Aura's suggestions, each and every girl is asking him to have a match with them. Their pretext is deepening our friendship, but he is losing each and every time. In fact, he says he had been assassinated 50 times. Alan wonders if he somehow angered Sylphie, prompting her to instigate everyone. Perhaps it was because he laughed at her when she asked him to scold Aura. That aside, their friendship has indeed deepened. As he reflects, he is approached again. They call out to the village chief, saying they want to play with him and asking if he would like to join. Another slave clings to him, insisting that today they have a prior reservation. He promised to talk with them. The others reply with a hint of disappointment, saying it's unfortunate and that they should do it next time. Alan thinks to himself that the distance between him and the slaves is slowly but surely shrinking. With shared topics to talk about, the slave girls begin to draw even closer. In any case, the strategy Sylphie came up with appears to be a resounding success. As an adult who can honestly express his gratitude, he finds that being treated like a child isn't so bad after all. At present, they are enjoying a rather pleasant communal life. Still, he admits to himself it's hard to say there isn't any dissatisfaction at all. He explains that Sylphie's innate skill, limitless tree formation. It seems that wind magic can evolve into a greater attribute, tree magic, meaning the elves who are loved by the winds and receive their blessings can become able to freely control any and all plants. Meanwhile, permeation, dwarves like Noel can, by using earth magic, diffuse fertilizers' nutrients through the soil. The power of their magic can even bring the underground currents above ground. After preparing the soil like this, it's possible to prompt germination, growth, and fructification. But tree magic, instant development, the slaves don't respect me in the slightest. He asks when he shouted, "Ain't I useless then?" He ends up critically wounded at the realization that his usefulness lies in cutting costs. Alan says, "Then let me at least do the harvesting." But Sylphie responds with a calm assurance that everything is okay, and the other girls enthusiastically volunteer to handle the situation. Aura cheerfully proclaims that everyone should feast their eyes on her great techniques. Magic swirls in the air as wind magic harvesting and post-processing take place. Alan watches the impressive display of skill, mentally acknowledging how amazing everyone is. Then, a sudden intrusive thought bursts in, shouting that they don't need his sorry self here. Is that what this is? Aura confidently declares how obvious the group's brilliance is. Sylphie, smiling gently, expresses her gratitude with a soft laugh and a quiet foo-foo of appreciation. Alan, overwhelmed by the situation, mentally erupts, cursing internally that with all these beautiful and cute smiling faces looking at him, there is no way he can say anything against it. He questions whether this is their plan all along, only for the goddess to interrupt with a snide remark, suggesting that perhaps he is just that easy. Yet there will be no silence, no surrender. The moment will not end like this. He still has an ace up his sleeve. Alan turns dramatically in a storm of emotion, declaring with firm resolve that laughter should be enjoyed while it lasts. Another proclamation echoes in his mind. This reincarnated life has only just begun.